Johanna and
Martin.
from Wrong Organ.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you for inviting us. This is really exciting.
Yes. As you guys know, we are like beyond excited to have you as guest. We reviewed your game a month or two ago, and we gave it 5 out of 5.
Oh, nice. Okay.
But maybe it would be nice for the audience to know a little bit about what you guys do at the company. So maybe you, Johanna, first.
Yeah. So my name is Johanna Kasurinen. I'm Finnish. Don't speak Swedish, unfortunately. I'm the one of the co-founders at Wrong Organ, the narrative designer and art lead.
I don't think that mic is totally on now.
Oh no.
Wait, try moving it a bit closer maybe. But no, I don't think. In worst case scenario, we have a free mic, I suppose. No. I think it's too low, sadly. But we have a free mic.
Hello.
Oh, there we go.
Hey. A live podcast now. Good. All right.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm Martin. I'm the sound designer and composer, also co-founder.
And when you say composer, it literally means that you did like every single sound in the game, though.
Yes. So that's a funny thing, is that when I talk about the sounds about the game, people assume that voice acting is not done by me. Like music must be sourced from somewhere, but no, that's my job.
Right, because you have done all of the music and all of the voice acting in this game as well.
Yes. Voice acting, Polly doing Curly, doing every character.
Isn't that quite impressive? Because I did not clock that it was just one person talking. Right, nice. But so you guys both founded Wrong Organ. Do you want to talk a bit about like how that came to be?
Yeah, sure. So we met at a trade school called Future Games, which is here in Stockholm. And we all attended, I think we started in 2021? Yeah, we started in 2021. We all went to the design class. So that education actually has like different paths for programmers and artists and stuff, but we all actually happened to be in the design class along with our programmer and then another guy who's our producer now. And I had made this game design document for a game called How Fish is Made to get into the school. And I was kind of showing off because I had made the 3D models for the game. I was like, oh, I made this, and it's I thought it was a fun idea. And then our programmer Jeffrey Tomek, he was like, oh, let's just finish that game. Why don't we just finish it and put it out? And we did, and it did pretty well. Like it was a free game, so we didn't make any money off it, but like it got pretty good like critical reception. So then we just kind of thought like, let's see what comes of this. And then we tried to make another game in between. Didn't go as well, that ended up never coming out. But at that point, then we decided like, okay, well, I think we can try and be a company now. And then, like literally, we hit the ground running. We said, okay, now we need another game, and we came up with the idea for Mouthwashing.
Right, and we will talk more about that in just a little bit. But I'm so curious about the name Wrong Organ. What is it, Madu?
I mean, it is the wrong organ. We were bouncing around so many different ideas. Like we tried to what was the name? Like we tried to submit one name.
Oh yeah, because we had like a short list, so we probably had like a huge list of probably 30 names that we were bouncing around. And then we landed on one, and it got rejected by the Swedish government because it was
worship program.
Yeah, it sounded too much like a religious like cult or something like that. So Wrong Organ was actually the next one, so it wasn't second choice, but I think it ended up good. We just kind of wanted something that sounded, because our games tend to be very like strange and have this like, I always say uncomfortable feel, so we wanted our logo, we wanted our logo, our names to sort of reflect that, and then so we just came up with that, and then we came up with our logo, who is our mascot, Orban.
Nice. So you touched upon it a bit, Johanna, in that you started to create another game, and from that, Mouthwashing was born. No? You want to tell us a bit about like the birth of that?
Yeah, so it was during school, so we released How Fish is Made, and it did pretty well. Like, I'm talking, when I say it was like a successful game, we got like maybe 2,000 reviews on Steam, and we were big dogs at that point. We thought we were just like absolutely over the moon. So we thought, let's make another game, and that game was gonna be much more like action adventure. Like, it's How Fish is Made is very esoteric and sort of like very abstract in a lot of ways.
You're just like a fish jumping through a machine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like you jump around as a fish and you make one choice in the game, and that's the entire game. So we thought, okay, we had all these other talented students around us. Let's get a slightly bigger team going, and we're going to make this sort of much more, regular 3-act structure type of game. And I think it was just like it was taking too long to put together. A lot of really good work went into it. If you go like on my Twitter or something like into the past, you can actually see all of the stuff that we posted about that project. And I'd say we were like 70% done or something on it, but it was just taking too long. And then people started having to leave for internships because we were getting closer to graduation. And it was really difficult, to be honest, at least for me. Like, when you're at this point where you're like, we have to stop, and you have to tell all these people who have spent all their free time during school making this project, and you, as we were kind of leads on the project, we had to go to them and be like, we can't finish it, like, it's just not going to come out. So it was really sort of upsetting to me, and it was partly because of that experience that Mouthwashing was then actually born out of, because it was this like, for me, it felt like I was in charge of this situation that you can just tell that it's not gonna get better. So when can you please hear me?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. So when I started, thinking, okay, we needed an idea for the next game, it became like, okay, how do I, take that emotion and that situation, and then you just bring it to like the nth degree. Okay, so it's not a failing project, it's a failing spaceship. And how do you keep just making it worse and worse? And then you have this character who's really trying to fix it all the time, and it's just not getting better.
Right. So it was like born out of despair.
Exactly, like completely.
Alright. So what was the original game's name? Katirka? No.
Yeah, Katurka.
Alright. So I'm just wondering, like, is there any remnants still left in Mouthwashing from that game?
I mean, there's the one character that keeps reappearing, and you talked about that in your presentation. Holly is.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can see when you kind of look at the old game. So horseback riding, for instance, was a big part of Katurka. So that was why I decided to call it Pony Express. It was like a direct sort of like, okay, I spent a lot of time 3D modeling horses and painting horses. We had all these horse characters. So to me, it was like, okay, let me take that, and that's going to be like the company in Mouthwashing then ended up being kind of symbolic of that. And, you wouldn't know it as a player, but for me, it's like very obvious that game is haunting Mouthwashing in a way. So, which is why we went with the horses for that. But there's no like direct characters that come from one to the other. What's really funny to me is that we get a lot of really great fan art for Mouthwashing, which is really crazy to me. But people keep drawing Jimmy with a lip scar, and it's not part of his design actually. I think it was caused by like there's a texture like break in his face, and I think it was caused by me moving like the part of the layer at some point, and I didn't notice it. But the main character in Katurka has a lip scar there, and I am like, that game is haunting Mouthwashing. It's ridiculous to me, and now I see all this fan art with my one character kind of wearing the face of the other character, and it's so strange to me.
Oh, that is so Freudian.
Yeah,
Obsessed. There are no coincidences.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, the name of the ship in Mouthwashing, what is it?
It's Tulpar.
And that is a horse god?
Yeah, exactly. So that's the Katurka was set in a steppe, and that was really inspired by the Kazakh, countryside, I guess, in the Kazakh steppe. And the Tulpar is, I think it's like a Turkic mythologic horse. So that's also a reference again to to Katurka and the sort of, I think the national emblem of Kazakhstan has the toolbar on it. So again, it's very directly inspired by that.
Cool. But I find it so interesting that you say that the old game was haunting Mouthwashing, because the horse is quite literally haunting the player. Like the running sequence, like it is very much a ghost. But Martin, so you were the one who originated the idea, Johanna. So you had to pitch it for Martin then, I assume. How did the original pitch sound, Martin, and what did you think of it?
I mean, I thought it was cool. It was a little different from what the game ended up being at the end, because I think the slides that we had as like a pitch deck was like, okay, well, this is the kind of game, this is the setting, this is the like aesthetic of the game, the narrative. It was pitched as Twin Peaks in space. And I think it was supposed to be, was it like just a couple of months of development time?
Yeah.
Yeah, that then grew exponentially, kind of like, I don't want to say emulating kind of what Katurka did, it just kind of expanded. Mouthwashing did the
Yeah, right there.
it was similar in some ways, but I'm just in love with the concept that Johanna comes up with. Like, it's just so cool.
What else was different from the original pitch versus the finished product, would you say?
I think it's surprisingly similar in the end to, because it was, for instance, it was always called Mouthwashing from the beginning. So I did pitch it as the concept of the game would be that they are carrying mouthwash, and that was always a part of it. We did go back at one point and think like, okay, should it be something else? Should it just be hard liquor or hand sanitizer? I couldn't consider it at one point. But I thought that people might. Huh?
Pandemic coded.
Exactly, that's why I didn't like it. I was like, oh, people would probably think it's some kind of commentary on the pandemic, so I was like, that's not. Plus, I think hand sanitizer, if you consume it, it'll kill you a lot faster, so I can't have that. But yeah, it was called Mouthwashing. I think all of the plot beats were pretty much there from the beginning. Curly was pretty much like the first character that I came up with, and I kind of immediately knew that he has to be this very impactful looking, no pun intended, guy.
Very much impacted.
Yeah, very impacted. So I think I had like a sketch of him right from the beginning in there, and then I had, because we have very strong like actor inspirations for the rest of the cast, so I had just like images of them. Shirley Duvall, obviously, very heavily inspired Anya, so we had like pictures.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I see it.
It's very, like, when you notice it, there's a lot of The Shining in Mouthwashing. There's a lot of, like, I think Mouthwashing definitely wears its inspirations very heavily, like, you can tell, and we like that. But yeah, I don't know what I would say, like, what's a big change, because it was quite similar. I think just the scope was the thing that became the biggest difference, and the fact that my pitch had no gameplay ideas in it. So we had this like narrative concept that we then kind of retroactively had to fit gameplay into, which was a big challenge for our gameplay team. So I think there you would probably have the biggest change.
Yeah, it's interesting that, sorry to cut you off. No, but it's interesting that so much of the gameplay just came as we worked on the game, like over the course of the development cycle. So there are some scenes towards the very end that were made, like, I want to say last month, before the game came out.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for instance, that's another thing, like the ID cards of the characters are very popular with our fans, and those were never meant to be in the game. I drew those over Christmas break, I guess 2024, Christmas 2023. We were on break, and I was just kind of drawing on my iPad. I was like, oh, I can make this cool poster with some ID cards, but the like full versions were never supposed to be shown. But then Martin came up with this really cool scene where there's the ID cards in like the hallway, and they're sort of floating around. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, we gotta put that in. But yeah, there's the ID cards, they kind of haunt me as well, because they were created very haphazardly. And I was always like, well, no one's gonna see them anyways. People have seen them now. They've seen them now, and yeah. And so I might have changed some stuff on them if I knew they were going to be so sort of like out there. For instance, I hate the way Jimmy's picture looks. It's a bad. I can say that I drew it. It's a really bad image because he looks very different from his ID photo. But that was, I think, at that point I was like, oh, maybe I should change his design a little bit. So I drew him slightly different than what he is in game, and then I ended up not changing the 3D model, so they look very different. I'm just like, that's the ugliest image I've ever drawn. I wish I could just go back and change it, to be honest.
But it's easy to be self-critical.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about like how you adopted gameplay into the narrative, because a lot of it is very reinforcing the terror of like the whole stay for the player. Like when you're cutting up the cake and then cutting up a person, when you are like force-feeding a person to itself.
I love this family-friendly topic that we can discuss with these games out here.
Play the game, but I didn't spoil any characters if so. But did you ever, like, how was it, like, did you feel like, oh, we're pushing this too far? Like, the auto-cannibalism isn't like a super normal sight in most games, I would say, or media.
So did we think that we were pushing it too far?
Well, was there something like, oh, we want to do this, but we're not sure, do we dare to, or did you just go like...
Ooh, I think, well, I guess I'm at least as a person, gore doesn't really affect me that much, so I think for me it was like, the gore never felt that, like, I guess out there, and that we knew that it was going to be like a pretty much, like, K-18 game, like, you know, it's going to go their places. I think in terms of like other topics in the game, so we talk a lot about like, you know, different kinds of abuse and such. That was much more scary for me, I think, as a writer, because you have no idea how that's going to be like taken in by the audience, and absolutely like that's also part of the reason why I was kind of blasé about like, let's say, the ID cards. Like I was like, yeah, no one's going to see them anyways. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I think if I had known that this game was going to blow up the way it did, I might have been too scared to actually tackle some of these topics. So in that sense, I'm like, it was easier when I thought, you know, nobody would. So I wasn't too worried, even if sometimes it was like, okay, maybe this is too much.
So when did you realize that it was a real hit, I guess?
Oh my god.
I mean, when my little brother told me he heard about the game through TikTok, I think was when it kind of hit. There's some other moments, of course, but yeah, that was a really like wow kind of moment that he didn't hear from me. I know I've told him many times, so like, okay, I'm doing this game, right? But it was through TikTok.
This is so little sibling coded. I can't hear it.
It was very, very strange.
Yeah, for me as well, it was like when the game like first launched, because I was like, okay, if we get a few good reviews, if we get maybe like 400 reviews on Steam or something, like then we can, you know, show it to maybe future publishers or something if we're trying to. That was like my highest hope for the game, like we get some critical success maybe, and that's it, and then we can move on. So then the game came out, and like we had some YouTubers cover it, and I was already at that point like, great, it's done better than I thought. This is great. But then it kind of just kept going and going, and like every single time we hit some sort of like milestone with, you know, reviews or sales or anything, or, you know, coverage from a big influencer or something, it was always just like, wow, okay, it just keeps doing much better than expected. Like for instance, before the game came out, I made a folder on my computer for fan art, because I was like, okay, if I find any fan art at some point, I'm going to save it and put it, like, so I don't lose it. And now it's like, there's so much beautiful fan art that people are creating all the time. It just blows my mind.
Yeah. And there's a lot of cosplayers here at the conference.
Yeah, we met them earlier. They look really great. And I love that they're walking around with like blood on their face and stuff. I'm glad we can influence good in the world.
I saw a fan-made voice-acted clip as well from a scene, and that got me thinking, because you did all of the voice acting, Martin, but it's quite limited in the game.
Yeah.
Was there stuff that was cut because of budget constraints within the game?
No, my mic is working.
Oh, right.
Yeah. No, it is. It's interesting that there's very little things audio-wise that gets cut. It was more me presenting like weird ideas to the team and then seeing, oh, can we do that? And most of the time it was just yes. So there was one scene that I think you started riding around. So there was only supposed to be 2 instances where you feed Curly. But then I went out to my little cabin. I recorded another very intense version of that, and then came back and showed that to the team. And I think there was one scene that now kind of centers around that. So there's an act of like you feed him once, it sounds horrible. You feed him a second time, it is even more intense. And then the third time, it's kind of like he's realized something, and it's much calmer and more gentle. You know. But I think
the second one is where he's punching him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I love that one. So at the time we were working out of a house, and then Martin had his like sound studio in like a shack under the like garden of the house. Where he did all his sound stuff, and we needed the Curly choking noises, and then we had first only 2 scenes where you fed Curly, but we figured we needed to add a third one because we needed it to be sort of like a routine being established. So then I wrote the scene where it's like sort of the most violent version of that, and then it's funny because Martin sits next to me. I was like, Martin, I'm gonna need more choking noises. And then he goes out into his cabin and he comes back with the like most upsetting choking noises. But then I think I was like, no, Martin, I think this one needs to be even worse. And then you're like, okay. And then you go out to your cabin. I don't know what sins he does in that cabin. And he comes back and it's just like the most violent choking noises. I'm like, oh, this is great. This we can go with. Yeah.
Did the house have any neighbors?
We did. We actually, there's a dog. There's a picture of a dog in the game that Swansea, one of the characters, has. That was our neighbor's dog, and they they had no idea. We told them we're game developers, but I don't think they didn't really understand. They were just like, wow, that's really great, and they brought us some like kanelbulles at one point.
Yeah.
And stuff. They were really great neighbors, but we wanted to like pay homage to them by putting the dog Jackson into the game. I wanted to have a dog on the crew, like an actual dog there too, but. That was one like idea that was vetoed out because the rest of the team thought it was too upsetting.
After cannibalism, dogging space.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Exactly.
interesting. But I'm thinking about like the audio design in general, Martin, because you were the sole person doing all of them. How did you go about, because it is a very eerie atmosphere, like how did you create all of these sounds basically?
I mean, there's a lot of references to movies and to like games that I like.
Such as?
The Shining, of course. Sunshine is a big one too. The soundtrack of that one is amazing.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of I play Soma. It's one of my favorite games ever. A lot of frictional games, like they're just the sounds of those games. Amnesia, The Dark Descent, if you play that, super good. There's a lot of experimentation, and I think that is a through line of the entire process of making the games. That everything is just you try something out and you present it to the team, and if it's good, then you kind of use it. And a lot of that was just like you add one sound that's like the ship ambience. Okay, how can we make this even more visceral and intense? And like it also needs to kind of tie into the story of the game. So like enhancing the sense of time jumps. Audio kind of needs to do that, because otherwise the only thing that you have to judge by is just the characters that you see in the state of the ship. So audio is just another way of like showing that, okay, pre-crash, it sounds very calm, it's a digital functioning ship. After the crash, everything's broken down and everything's just like there's a lot of murmur. And then once you're in the bizarro sequence, which is what we call the horror sections, it's all just completely quiet, because at that point you're not in reality anymore, you're somewhere else. So there's a lot of like, thinking about what the story is doing and then just kind of emulating that, but in a different medium.
Very interesting. I'm so bad with the sound design as well, but but the result was so good. We talked a bit about the fan reception, which has been immense. I feel like this is a cult classic already. I don't know, but and Anya, talk about the sexual assault or abuse. I would say she's like a standout fan favorite. We made a plushie of her as well and everything. Did you expect her to resonate the way she did?
No, that was part of sort of the scary part about writing Mouthwashing, was that like, just like veering into that topic in general is difficult, and obviously, you have to be, as a writer, if you're going to tackle something like that, if you do it badly, you know, people should, you know, criticize you. So I was like, okay, I'll try it. Maybe it'll be swing and a miss. Maybe it'll be good. But especially I think with Anya's story, because what's so central to her as a character is the fact that it's not about her, the story. Like that's kind of the point. Is like it should be about her, but it's not. So it's very obviously like there are scenes where, you know, she should be present or she should be talked about that she's not. And like my fear was that I wouldn't be able to sort of pull that off, and people would just be kind of like, well, why is, you know, this horrible thing happens to her? Why is she not being like discussed, or like you don't get to have, she doesn't kind of get to have her moments, where I was like, okay, that's the point. That's the point of the story, is that she doesn't get to have those moments that you would want her to have. But if it had been like, you know, badly executed, it would have just come across as like, okay, well, they don't know what they're doing. But it seems to have gone down well, and yeah, I think she's definitely one of the fan favorites, which is really nice to see, and I'm glad. So much like great conversation about her online and about a lot of the issues in general, which I found like it's really nice to see that as a writer.
And it's also interesting how like she doesn't have a voice actor, obviously, because they don't have a voice actress on the game.
Exactly. And yeah, that kind of ties into the whole like Anya never really having a voice is in both a textual sense of like the story and the narrative, but again in a very real way too, that she just never speaks. She never has that voice. But Curly does, you know, and Amy does. You know, Swansea, Daisuke.
Yeah.
Did you ever think about adding a voice actress for her, or was there always the plan to?
There was a point where we were discussing doing voice acting for the game, but partly for a budget reason, we just didn't do that. But the more we thought about it, the more we want to stay away from giving anybody a clear, distinct like voice, because it's easy to like. When you're talking about a story with this heavy of a subject matter, you don't really want to do any kind of like characterization in a bad way, you know. So it's just easier and a little safer to let everything be written, and I think that just enhances your writing a little bit more, because you can be more free and you don't have to write dialogue, like spoken dialogue.
Yeah, you would write, like, I think writing for dialogue that's meant to be spoken out loud is a little bit different than one that wouldn't be. I think it works surprisingly well. I do enjoy watching people play the game and doing voices for the characters, even if it's just one person. I think that's always a lot of fun. I think the one scene that we do have voice acting towards the end is where Polly is talking to Jimmy, and that was completely Martin's idea, because that was not in the script at all. So I think you just said like, yeah, I want to try that. And I remember being like, I don't know, like, because Polly obviously talks in this like goofy kind of mascot voice, so I was like, I don't know if that's gonna sell, but I really like that scene. I think it really works.
Yeah, I want to give some credit to Jeffrey, our gameplay programmer, who actually came up with the idea of like splicing together what sounds like clips from like TV shows or like parts of dialogue that Polly's already speaking, but kind of mangled together to form a sentence. And so it's the only part of the game, besides where Polly speaks, of course, that has spoken dialogue, which I think was kind of interesting.
And I think maybe on the opposite end, do you think there's any character who doesn't get enough love or attention from the fandom?
Swansea! He's my favorite. He's my man. Oh, people are sleeping on Swansea. Maybe I'm a little bit older than most of our fans, but you know, I look at that cast and I go, Swansea's the real one. No, I like Swansea was the funnest character I think for me to write, because he just says a lot of like he has always had to have something kind of fun to say, and it was a lot of fun to come up with those like sayings. He uses the term downstairs long nose at one point. That was actually a remnant from Katurka as well, because Katurka took place in like like a fantasy setting, so like not real world. So I needed slang for them to use that wasn't from like our world. And I wrote that then. I was like, I thought that was kind of good. So I was like, I'll just put it into Mouthwashing as well. So that was actually a reference as well. So I think Swansea, he just doesn't appeal to, I guess, the younger people as much, but he was one of my favorite characters to write, both in terms of the fun stuff, but I think his monologue is probably my favorite piece of writing in the game. So I think he could use a little bit more love, but
sure.
people will understand when they grow older, I guess.
I guess I must be old because he was my favorite too.
Yeah.
And I also remember writing downstairs long notes in my notes.
It should catch on. Maybe I'll try and make it happen. Just put it to every game that we make from now on.
No, I really liked Swansea. I especially liked the scene where he, I guess, decapitates or like kills Daisuke. Like he did to the son on the LCD screen, then calling him his little son and like ending him in the same way. I really like Swansea as well. But he's not my favorite character, so maybe I underappreciate him as well.
Yeah.
Is there any character that you like identify more with than the others?
I mean, I would say Anya in a lot of ways. There's a lot of, I want to say similarities on the shyness probably, but everybody has their own personal struggles, right? And so I feel like it's probably, she's one of the easiest characters to latch onto. Not just in the very obvious ways, but there's a quality to her that is easy to at least relate to, I think. So I would say Anya, but besides her, I mean, yeah. You?
You were the captain.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I mean, it is sort of, I think people are sometimes a little bit surprised when I'm like, all of the characters are different aspects of myself, including Jimmy. I think, I would say especially Jimmy, because obviously I always have to like, say that I haven't done anything quite as bad as he has in my life, but with him it was sort of taking a lot of negative emotions, and like when I was stressed about the previous project, it's easy to get stuck in these like ways of thinking that you end up like, you get angry, you get jealous of other people and stuff, and I wanted to take those emotions and be like, okay, well, I see these things in myself and these are bad things, but I'm, as a person, at least able to like maybe take a step back and go, okay, this isn't good. And I think it's their emotions that a lot of people probably go through at some point. But then take those emotions and like, again, bring them to like the nth degree and create a character who is like that, who then doesn't know how to, deal with those emotions in a healthy way. But also, Curly, for instance, I think I'm very surprised with the fan reception to him, considering how little screen time he has in his pre-crash form. That's been really fun. But I think, him talking about his career was pretty directly inspired by, because I had a career in marketing before I became a game developer, and it was very like one-to-one kind of the stuff that I was thinking, because I was making decent money for the first time in my life, and I just thought kind of like, I had a good job. I worked in marketing at a game publisher. But then it became like, okay, well, do I take this risk and throw all of that away, go back to school and try and become a game designer? And at that point, I was like, well, I'll try it, and then, if it, crashes and pride. But it's really difficult to make those kinds of decisions in the moment, so that was sort of directly what inspired Curly as well. So I think that there's aspects of myself in all of the characters.
You talked a bit about like different articles that were planned to be shipped on the ship, like you said alcohol or just like hand sanitizers, and then you didn't want to do hands because of the commentary. What is Mouthwashing a commentary of, would you say?
I think Mouthwash, it works on a couple different levels. I think the main point was just like where the idea started from was just, okay, I want there to be alcohol, because there's a lot of points when creating Mouthwashing, because as a narrative, it's one of those that like, it never gets better. So there were a lot of points where I was just kind of sitting there like, how do I make this situation worse? So it's like, when I was coming up with the idea, it's, okay, we're crashed, and we're kind of stuck in some place. How do you make it worse? You add alcohol, and then you add a lot of alcohol. And then, for instance, another point was like, how do I make this worse? Oh, now there's a gun on board. Okay, that in there. So that's kind of how it works. So I knew I wanted it to be alcohol from the beginning, but I think thematically it also works because it is sort of this like, you're not actually fixing an issue if you use mouthwash. You're not actually cleaning your mouth, but it very superficially like covers up the bad things, which is, you know, a thematic through line for the topics discussed in the game.
It kills 99.9, but not all of it.
Exactly.
Oh, can I eat candy? Yes, I use mouthwash anyways. Yeah, alright, yeah. It's because the responsibility theme is big throughout the whole game, and I find it very interesting how you guys tackle that, because it is taking responsibility is both a good and a bad thing in the game, I would say. How do you think about, or how do you feel about my statement on that, I guess? Would you agree? No? Martin, nod your head, but maybe out of politeness.
I do think the theme about responsibility is interesting in that it's again kind of a red herring. That the most surprising thing is a lot of people who have said like, oh well, Jimmy did take responsibility in that, which like, no, that's the whole point. It's like, you know, responsibility is kind of like it's a saying that he kind of convinces himself that he's doing the right thing at the end, right? Which, you know, you as a player, you understand that is, it's a point of frustration that like, no, that is not the right thing. Every single thing that he does is like the worst option. You know, I think I can speak more on that, but it's supposed to be like, you know, okay, I would not do that. Okay, no, I would not do that. No, I would not do that. Very intentionally, but he's like convinced himself that that is the right thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. Yeah, I think I don't know if I agree with like saying that taking responsibility is a bad thing. I think anytime the characters, if there's like Martin was saying, Jimmy thinks he's taking responsibility, but he's not actually taking responsibility. And I think in real life too, you can kind of like convince yourself sometimes that like, okay, no, I you know, maybe atoned for something bad I've done, but you're kind of not entirely addressing the issue. So I don't know if there's any point in the game where a character does actually take responsibility where it then turns out badly for them. I do think that would be an interesting topic to explore, I think, because I don't think there's probably anything in this world that's entirely positive or negative in a sense. But yeah, I think responsibility being like a central theme to the game is you can kind of like, the biggest moments are the ones where either character is thinking that they're taking responsibility but not actually taking it, or then, you know, actually taking it where it turns out, even if it's difficult. I think like you said with Swansea, killing Daisuke, like that is him taking responsibility even when it's like horrifying the way you have to do it.
It's very interesting. So we talked earlier about the fact that the game was born out of a place of hardship and sort of like failure with the game. How does it feel now to work from a place of success, I guess?
Yeah, it's very different.
It's very different. I would say it's like a double-edged sword in that before Mouthwashing, we were kind of working with the expectation that nobody was going to play it, so it felt more free in that you don't have to kind of restrain anything out of fear of like, oh, well, what's the backlash going to be? Because we're not expecting any any reception. But now that Mouthwashing became big, we're like, okay, well, that was successful, so I want to bring that with me, but now I'm also conscious of what is the player base that we do have going to think about the next thing, you know, especially because, you know, if you're making Mouthwashing, or if you're making Mouthwashing 2, for example, there's a lot of carryover that you could take, but if you're making another thing, then you're going to have the expectations of, well, it's not Mouthwashing. So, like, it's a weird, like, you're very privileged to be in a position where people are looking for your creations, but then you're also consciously thinking of, okay, well, how do I kind of retain that, but also the artistic integrity at the same time? It's a weird situation to be in. Very cool, but yeah.
Because you guys are working on something Can you say anything within the realm of existence that it is out?
Well, it's not Mouthwashing 2.
Alright, I was like, what's that?
Yeah, like, we're not in anything like that. Yeah, I mean, what I can say, and kind of what we have been saying, is that it's very different from Mouthwashing. It's very, very different from Mouthwashing. I think it's going to be very unexpected, and we'll see how. In that sense, it's very nerve-wracking for us, because we are like, okay, I'm sure people would want another narrative-focused game from us. It's not a narrative-focused game. It's going to be much more heavily gameplay-oriented. But for us, it's the reason that we want to tackle a project like that is, well, just because the way we come up with ideas for any project that we're doing, it is literally just if someone has something and then they're really excited about it and they pitch it and we think it's good, then we're going to do that. So this is the idea that we have for the next one. But also as a company, we've kind of shown now that we're able to do narrative. We did have Fishes Made and then Mouthwashing. But now we're like, okay, we have this incredibly talented gameplay team as well that they haven't kind of been able to kind of flex at this point. So I'm excited that they get to kind of have their time in the sun with the next one. But I think in the future, if we manage to keep in business for the long term, we want to bring both of those together to kind of 50-50. We want to have great gameplay games with good narrative in it as well. But what we do like to say is that we always bring a certain strangeness and uncomfortable horror energy to all our projects, and that is very much going to be present in the next one as well.
Exciting. Oh, I want to dig deeper, but I will respect it. It being the two of you. Alright, good. No, but it is very interesting. Us leading up to this interview, my little cousin cosplayed this game Curly for a convention. That is how I found out about the game, for example. And he was like, oh, you need to ask this, what is this, what does this mean? And I think that's the beauty of this game in many ways, that it is very enigmatic, that you work with mystery, don't over-explain everything, for example.
Oh yeah, we get a lot of emails and DMs, a lot. And I think some of them are really funny, because they're like, I'm having an argument with my friend, so could you really quickly just explain what happens to Curly after the game? And I'm just I always kind of feel how boring would it be if I was just oh no worries, let me just really quickly in a couple of sentences answer that question for you.
But I also love the idea of you being yes, so 2 years after this, he finds his wife, blah blah blah, and not putting into the game.
Yeah, but it is some of them they're so earnestly asking, because they're just I'm having an argument with my friend. You need to step in right now, and I'm like, okay.
Take responsibility.
Yeah.
Right.
There you go. But it's fun with receiving those questions. Obviously, like you said, I think part of the reason why the game has a little bit more staying power than the very short length of the actual game itself is because it has this open-endedness to it, and I always feel a lot of it is kind of, this is a very writer answer, so a lot of it is what you bring into it as a narrative. So in a sense, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't have a correct answer. To me, it feels like it doesn't matter what I think about a lot of stuff. If I think certain things about certain things, if someone plays the game and their take on the narrative is one thing, I'm like, yeah, that's you should take that with you, rather than something that I would put my foot down and be like, it's the writer, this is what I meant. I think it's much more valuable to bring yourself into it and kind of see how you're reflected by the game.
Yeah, there's a lot of empty space for the player to project on, basically.
Exactly.
With Curly, for example. Do we have anything more we need to say? We need to ask.
I think we do, but we don't have a lot of time.
No, we don't have a lot of time. But what we do have time for, because we will always have time for this, so we would very much like you guys to sign this.
Oh my god. Wow.
You can sign it wherever.
You're out of breath now. Yeah. I ordered some, but it never arrived for some reason.
Oh, but I made this.
Huh?
I made this.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, please be impressed.
I made this.
This is really nicely made, though.
You can write on the back, maybe, or in the front. Or do it in the front, of course.
Okay,
in the front.
Yeah. It's really nice, well made.
Yeah.
So I printed this from Google, but I did have to like glue it.
I love though that like now our brand is like mouthwash, and previously it was fish before that. Like, for instance, my mom bought me like a cat toy of a fish because when we released how fish is made, she's like, this reminded me of you, and I'm like, great, thank you. And now people come up to us a lot with mouthwash, and they're
And
like,
I'm so happy for it. So now, if we are not too greedy, we might even like make this into a competition on our Instagram for the audience.
Yes.
We will see if we agree to part with it or not. But thank you guys so much for this opportunity. I'm so thankful. This has been so much fun. I love this game. Love talking to you.
Yeah. Big thank you. I mean, it was a very like a captivating experience to play the game, and so nice to hear you talk about it, and nice to get the opportunity to do it here.
great, thank you.
And thank you for the audience. And we all very much look forward to the next game, no matter how narrative. I think it's going to be amazing anyway. Okay, a big round of applause.